pretty much the same thing as going under oath. You can be charged and put in jail for it. My next guest, he's the founder of a Voter Integrity Project. Also, he's been digging deep into these numbers concerning election fraud. You may have seen him testify right here on OAN at the Arizona hearings earlier this week. Welcome back to the show, Matt Braynard. Matt, thanks so much for keeping your word. I asked you when you were on earlier this week to come back and kind of wrap up the week after we have more hearings. And wow, I know you want to talk about Georgia and some other states, but let's back up to what happened last night. Because when I heard those two ladies, especially, and the last one, you probably heard the clip there, I believed them. I don't know how anybody could not. As she brought up, when you're lying, you need brain muscle memory to remember the lies. When you're telling the truth, it comes out the same every time. And by golly, those folks seemed like brave Americans to me that were standing up and telling the truth.
Right. And my conclusion, I was at the hearing myself, and I saw it from end to end. I don't think that even the Republican legislators there wanted to have this hearing. I feel like they sent so much anger from their constituents over how this election was conducted. They felt kind of obligated, and they were, for the most part, completely half-hearted about it. They didn't go out trying to find whether or not this election was valid or do any of their own independent investigation. They were just hoping, and somebody would come and bring something and drop in their lap, and then they were extremely skeptical. They were so lukewarm and lacking in any passion for discovering the truth that it was pretty disappointing. It's clear they just wanted to get it over with. There's a reason they scheduled it when they did late at night to close it, and it was quite disappointing that there was not more fervor given the evidence that was presented to them and the evidence that has been presented to them outside of the hearing room.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I would say the chairman was the only one that had any passion about hearing from these brave Americans. And obviously the folks left of him, the Democrats, just thought it was all a farce, all lies, because these folks are Republicans, as they claimed from their bench and their high post, and saying that pretty much they were liars. I did appreciate the fact there was a Democrat gentleman, you'll tell me who he was, that was to the left of Miss Johnson, the one we heard from there at the end, calling them liars, who all his point to the questions were is, when did you come in contact with the Trump legal team? Trying to act like this was a setup, like the Trump legal team had forced them to come forward with this evidence and sign affidavits. And every single one of them had done this weeks ago and have had no contact with Giuliani or the Trump team, right?
That's true. I mean, anybody in any of these states, who steps forward and says, look, I'm going to look into this problem, or is a lawyer that's connected to anybody, they're going to be bombarded with people that have these stories to share, that are patriotic Americans that want to be heard. These people don't have to be teased out or tricked. I was in the witness waiting room, and they actually had to turn witnesses away. We had women, one woman in particular, who worked for the Board of Elections in Detroit. She didn't get the chance to testify, but she said she was afraid she would lose her job. She was terrified in the witness waiting room, and she actually did end up signing an affidavit. So she put herself at risk. These people have a lot to lose by coming forward, and they've all put targets on their back now, not just locally in the state, not just because of the jobs they might have, but nationally, because we've seen the national media in this country, like CNN and New York Times, their favorite thing to do in the world is punch down. And I'm sure that they're, sending people out to dig through these individuals' trash and go through their backgrounds and expose, them for their history or something that might have happened long ago in the past or not happened at all.
Right. Oh, this one had a drinking problem 10 years ago. How can they be trusted with their testimony? Yeah, they'll come up with all kinds of BS. And I do agree with you. I do remember one moment last night when one of the Republicans went after the lady, I believe her last name is Carone. She's actually been on our show. She was the blonde lady with the bun who was subcontracted for Dominion. And she pointed out when they said, well, why aren't more people coming forward? Well, because it's ruined my life. I've had to move, change my phone number, delete all social media. I've lost family members and friends to this, and she's had death threats. That's why you can't come forward, because look what Democrats do to you if you come forward.
Absolutely. And, we've had people through the VIP that we've identified who've had the courage to step forward and sign affidavits and declarations saying that they say, for example, didn't cast votes that the state said they cast. And they, too, have been targeted by media, by anonymous voices on social media, and caused themselves all kinds of headache. And it's very hard to get people come forward, because it's not just a matter of courage, but sometimes life circumstances. Some people just can't afford to take those kinds of risks. So we should be extremely grateful to those that are. And again, these aren't just people running their mouths. They signed affidavits, and I know that every single one of them would have taken an oath had the Republicans running the meeting decided to put them under oath. None of them would have hesitated.
Yeah, one of the last witnesses, and I'm not going to try and pronounce her name because she actually joked with one of the representatives last night about trying to say her name, the Indian woman. So professional, profound what she said, and I love that she threw that back in their face when the Democrat tried to say, oh, you're not under oath, you guys are just making up lies. No, I signed the affidavit. If you're going to take an oath right now, my story won't change. I'll go under oath because what I'm saying is a fact. Matt, clarify something for me, because this is something that I believe truly happened, and you've been doing the research on so many different fronts in so many different states, is I almost feel like the cheating here and the fraud was three-tiered, and you correct me if I'm wrong. Three-tier meaning I think we had election interference by way of the software and the machines with Dominion. That's one. So that's 360 big level. Two, I would say the mail-out ballots. We've got fraudulent ballots, dead people voting with these. So there's the mail-in ballot that created, I think, millions of invalid votes. And third, you have the locals working these polling stations and the counting places who were obviously biased Democrats who cheated then on the ground during the count. Three levels of cheating and fraud. Am I off base?
Well, I can't attest to the first case, but I have a solution, which is we can no longer have these black box voting machines. Every piece of electronic equipment engaged in counting votes for us has to be open sourced software and open source hardware. So the suspicion doesn't have room to even exist in the future. In the second case, I believe you're correct. We've found many, many people who said they did not request absentee ballots. The state said they didn't mail them out. We've had many people who said they they didn't vote, and the state has them marked and signature verified as having voted. We've got those people documented. So that's very clearly happening. In the third case, I don't have myself evidence of that happening in the polling places, but it does look so suspicious. And when the Republican poll watchers are treated differently than Democrats are, that's a clear Bush v. Gore violation, and nothing that comes out of those polling places can be trusted in those circumstances. And I think the legislators have no choice but to not certify, because they cannot, talking about signing an affidavit and declaration under an oath of penalty, when those elections are certified, they're certified under the same circumstances. And that's very serious. I don't think that these people either are being honest or competent if they think that something like what happened in Detroit can happen and still be okay with certifying it.
When I hear from those witnesses, though, Matt, that's why I think the third is happening for sure, or did happen rather, because several of them said, I would watch them take a stack of 5 or 50 and rerun them through. The counter's supposed to get reset if you're redoing them if they didn't read properly. They would just let the counter keep going and turn 50 into 400 or 500. So that's the workers cheating. That's where I'm getting it from, is listening to witnesses.
Well, yeah, that, and the fact that the software that was counting it is closed source. So,
real quick, got to touch on Georgia.
A dangerous combination.
Are you heading to Georgia now? You're in Michigan, or you're already there? I know you're just crisscrossing.
I just got back from Michigan after being in Arizona. I expect to be in Georgia soon, and possibly back in Arizona for some special on-the-ground research projects that we're undertaking. Georgia, I think yesterday a lawsuit just dropped on behalf of the Trump campaign. And speaking of affidavits, I have an affidavit in there that's about 500 pages long. Whoa. Part of the reason it's so long is because we're actually documenting all of the names of individuals who's had ballots cast in their name, yet there's very, very strong indications they no longer meet residency requirements, or that they were registered with fake addresses that were not legal addresses to be registered from the beginning. They were registering at postal facilities, but disguising those post office boxes as apartments and suites, and then overwhelmingly voting by mail.
Wow. All right,
and that's open and shut. That's very incontrovertible. That is absolutely
because you can take the hard data.
Registered individuals.
Right, you can show them hard data. You can go, here's the ballot, here's the address. It's not a true address. By the way, they didn't meet the 30-day rule of living, which most states are 30 days. You got to live there first where you can vote. So you've got the data. You can prove it and go, these are fake voters. They didn't exist, or they broke the law to vote, or someone changed something. But you've got the facts
broke
there.
The law to vote. Broke the law to vote, or did not. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Incontrovertibly.
Yeah. Matt Braynard, man, thank you for what you're doing, the founder of Voter Integrity Project. If you're watching this show tonight and you saw something that, as I always say, stinks in Denmark, get a hold of Matt and his people. There are so many folks out there, the Amistad Project, Phil Klein, there's different groups that are fighting this and looking into this, and I think it's more than 5 or 6 states. I think it's even wider than that. Matt, thank you so much. I'm sure we'll see you again real soon.
Thank you very much. Sounds good.